Hello everyone! Let's continue creating beautiful and eye-catching decorations. Today we'll dive into how to create another type of festive decor in Procreate, which is foil ribbons. These are versatile elements that are always trendy, especially for New Year decorations or Advent calendars. Foil ribbons look vibrant, festive, and instantly set the holiday mood. In this lesson, we'll create a hanging decor piece in the form of a chandelier, something similar to the two examples I've prepared for you. First of all, let's take a look at the key points to keep in mind when designing such elements. The first thing is overall tone. Just take a look. In one example, there is a dominant reddish hue, while the other leans towards gold with yellow undertones. This is something to consider when selecting your color palette. The second thing is contrast. This is one of the most important aspects. Notice how the texture of the foil ribbons resembles wood grain, but with a characteristic striped pattern. The key here is strong transitions from dark to light. There are no smooth gradients, only sharp contrasts between black and white. And the third thing is reflections. This is what makes foil decorations stand out. In the examples, you can see multicolored highlights. Some areas feature more green and pink accents, while others lean towards yellow. Even subtle reflections add depth and shine to the design. On the light fixtures, you can also see how nearby objects are reflected on the surface. So, the main points to focus on when creating foil decorations are high contrast, texture, and signature reflections that highlight the material. In the next part of the lesson, we're going to break down the steps to achieve this effect in Procreate using gradients, textures, and brushes. Let's start by creating a simple three-tiered shape. For inspiration, I'm using the image of two pendant lights as a reference. First, I'll add a new layer and select a grayish color for the background. Then, I'll enable symmetry in the settings menu. This will make it easier to draw the frame of the chandelier since both sides will be automatically mirrored and will be identical. It's a crucial step for achieving symmetry. I'll position the symmetry line at the center so that it's convenient to draw the chandelier. On a new layer, I'll enable symmetry and choose a lighter color for the outlines. You can use any brush, but I'll work with the Rapido brush. I'll start sketching the tiers of the chandelier. From the top view, the upper part appears as a curve or an oval. After drawing the oval, I'll hold the stylus in place to automatically smooth the shape into a perfect ellipse. Now I can make some small adjustments if needed. Next, I'll duplicate the layer with the first oval, move it downward, and repeat the process for each tier. The bottom tier of the chandelier is almost straight, as we see it from the eye level. Once all tiers are completed, I'll merge the layers containing the outlines into one. Then, I'll disable symmetry and alignment, and carefully erase any unnecessary lines on the outline layer. Now the frame is complete. I'll add a new layer. Using the selection tool, I'll choose rectangle and fill the selected area with a dark orange color. Then I'll go to the calligraphy brush folder and select the Kuneni brush. This brush has an interesting texture, creating slightly jagged edges that add a unique effect. If the selection accidentally deactivates, simply hold the stylus to re-enable it and continue working. At this stage, the base for the decorative piece is ready. Next, we're going to add textures and highlights to create the foil effect. First, open the color palette and select a light shade. If you are unsure about drawing straight lines, you can enable Drawing Assist. Then, using different brush sizes and shades, draw lines alternating between light and dark tones. Add some gray tones and a hint of pink. You can use the eyedropper tool to sample shades from the reference, but I prefer to choose them manually. For the upper area of the texture, use more light tones. Next, let's move the outline layer above the texture layer. To create the shimmering effect, go to Adjustments, select Sharpen, and use the stylus to drag across the screen to increase the sharpness. The higher the sharpness, the greater the contrast, which is precisely what we need for the shimmering effect. Duplicate the layer and set its blending mode to multiply. Then use the eraser to lighten certain areas, leaving the top and one side darker. For the eraser, I recommend using a soft brush. If you hide one layer, you'll see how I lightened some parts and left others untouched. To enhance the effect, duplicate the adjusted layer once more, merge the layers, and proceed to the next step. To make the texture look as if it is wrapping around the cylindrical shape of the light fixture, compress it slightly on the sides using free-form transformation. Then, select a small section and squeeze it further. Now, repeat this process for the other side. This makes the edges curve naturally. Use the selection tool to brighten the bottom of the texture, mimicking light coming from below. Increase the brightness only in the selected area. Now, duplicate the texture layer and place it in the second and third tiers of the light fixture. Adjust the texture to fit the outlines of each tier and erase any excess. Merge the textures into a single layer. To transform the texture from a wood-like appearance to something more metallic and golden, go to Adjustments, select Hue, Saturation, Brightness, and shift the color towards a golden hue. Duplicate the layer again, set its blending mode to Add, and lower the opacity. Use a soft brush to erase the sides and upper parts of the layer, allowing the front of the texture to glow softly. Now, using the Rapido brush, draw the hanging wires for the light fixture. Choose a slightly grayish shade to create shadows and contours for added depth. Let's refine the edges of the texture. Select the eraser, go to the organic brush set, and choose the twig brush. Using this brush, lightly erase along the edges to give them a slightly irregular, torn appearance, as if it's a foil or tinsel. For added realism, use a thin brush to add a few stray glitter elements outside the main texture. Next, merge the layer with the texture and glitter. Let's create the pink glowing effect. Duplicate the layer, change its color to a pink tone, and use the eraser to remove parts of the texture, leaving the pink shade visible only on one side. Now you can hide the reference. At this stage, we have layers for the pink and gold light fixtures. Duplicate both layers and arrange them respectively. Select two layers and shift one slightly to make one of them light gold and the other light silver. For the silver light, reduce the saturation while maintaining a faint pink tint. Once you are satisfied with the result, merge all the layers for the light fixture. Duplicate this merged layer to add noise. To do this, go to Adjustments, select Glitch, then Artifacts, and slightly reduce the zoom level. Apply the effect by dragging the stylus across the screen, keeping it around 10% for a subtle effect. Leaving only the needed parts of the texture. That is why we used a duplicate layer. After cleaning up, merge the layers and your shimmering light fixture is complete. In projects like this, you can experiment with the background by using dark shades and adding lighter spots to create depth. Choose colors that you like, and if something needs adjustments, make sure to work on a separate layer to preserve your original work. I start by creating a background and then applying Gaussian blur to achieve a soft and smooth effect. Next, I go to Canvas settings and adjust the canvas size to make it more square. Then, I move the chandeliers closer to the center of the composition and slightly reduce their size for better balance. Now, I add a new layer. I go to the basic brushes, select the luminance folder and choose the flare brush. With this brush, I begin adding light flares of varying sizes. For the color, I choose the lightest shade possible, which is almost white. On an additional layer, I use brush number 16 to add more light reflections. I place this layer beneath the layers with the chandeliers. Then, using the transformation tool, I click on Distort to adjust the reflections to create a perspective effect, which helps to mimic the light on the ceiling. To make the reflections multicolored, I go to Glitch, select Diverge, and slide the stylus until the colors shift into a gradient. After that, I apply Gaussian blur again to soften the effect. The result is a magical festive card. The last steps are to adjust the placement of the chandeliers for the best composition and add a signature to complete the work.